Collecting and exporting. Now that we know the basics of animating inside of After Effects, we need to move to the final steps of our workflow. We need to be able to collect our final project so that we can back it up and share it with our colleagues. We will also learn how to export our animation to different formats and understand the options we have at our disposal. Collecting. As the word implies, collecting will make After Effects gather all the footage and project files and arrange them into a folder. But there is a bit more to collecting than just pressing a button and having everything added to a folder. You should always aim to keep your projects nice and neatly organized. But keep in mind that sometimes projects become very large during development, and often we will have unused or repeated footage throughout the project structure. Collecting projects with unnecessary footage will result in huge file sizes that are difficult to share or back up. We might also have issues if files are unlinked or if we have multiple files in the project with similar names. This will be problematic when we need to make different changes to them. So in order to fix this problem, After Effects has a few tools that will allow us to collect our projects in the best and easiest way possible. Before doing any of this, always remember to create a copy of your latest After Effects project, as some of the results of these tools are irreversible and you might lose your hard work. Reduce project. We will start by going into File, Dependencies. Here we'll find the tools we need in order to collect our project. First, let's look at how the Reduce Project feature works. This will delete anything in the project that isn't inside one of the compositions you select in the project panel. To better explain this, I'll start by selecting Scene 1 from the current project and then go to File, Dependencies, and Reduce Project. Once After Effects is done processing, it will tell me how many files were removed from the project. In the project panel, I now only have the folders and files that were part of Scene 1. To clean up your projects, select the main and final project composition. This should be the composition that has all the scenes nested in it, and then select the Reduce Project tool. Anything that is not being used will be removed, making our file significantly lighter and more organized once we collect it. Remember, layers that have their visibility turned off will not be removed. So if you have placeholders or footage with the visibility turned off, you still have to manually remove those if you don't want After Effects to collect them. Remove unused footage. Similar to Reduce Project, the Remove Unused Footage will, as its name suggests, identify all of the media in the project not being used in any of the compositions and then remove them. The problem with this is that if you have any unused compositions with footage inside of it, it will not be removed, as the tool only removes any footage that is not inside of any composition. Consolidate all footage. This feature is very useful, as it will look at the files in your project panel and find any repeated footage that is being used in one or more compositions. Then it will link all the layers to a single file and remove any copies of the duplicated file. Once the duplicates have been removed, remember to check where the new file is stored to ensure that it is in the right folder. Collect files. Now that our project has been reduced and consolidated, we can move to collecting the project into a single folder. To do this, go to File, Dependencies, Collect Files. Once you click on it, After Effects will ask you to save your current file. Once the save is complete, a new window will pop up with different options available for the collection process. The Collect Source Files drop-down menu enables us to choose what After Effects will use to create the collected folder. We can leave this as All. There might be an instance where you don't need to collect the files from all of the compositions. In order to do this, you can select the comp or compositions that you want to collect on your project panel. Next, select File, Dependencies, Collect Files. A pop-up window will appear where you can select 4 selected comps in the drop-down menu. I would recommend leaving all the other parameters as is. If we select all, they're actually grayed out, and we don't need them to collect our files properly. Finally, click on the Collect button. After Effects will ask us to choose a folder where we want the collected project folder to be saved to. Here you can also change the name of the folder. If you don't name it, the name of the After Effects file will be used. Now that you've chosen the location and name of your folder, you can select Save, and After Effects will start collecting all the files and place them into a folder. When the save is complete, I recommend opening the file to check that everything is there and working properly. There have been instances where After Effects doesn't copy all of the files into a folder, and some of them are missing. Speaking of missing files, did you notice the options at the bottom of the Dependencies menu that say Find Missing Effect, Missing Font, and Missing Footage? If you click on any of these, you'll see After Effects uses the search field to find compositions that might have missing effects or fonts or missing footage in the project window. This is super helpful for when you open After Effects files that have broken footage links. You can use the menu or type Missing in the search field, and you'll be able to see the missing footage. This icon indicates that assets are disconnected from the source. To fix them, you need to right-click over them and select Replace Footage. When you do this, After Effects will open the Finder or Explorer window and allow you to search for the file. Once you find it, After Effects will also look for any other missing files in that folder and link them to their corresponding assets. Exporting. Exporting or rendering is the process of saving your compositions to video files. When it comes to exporting in After Effects, we have a few options and formats we need to look at, as well as some parameters that will give us the best results possible. Let's look at the native After Effects render engine that can be accessed by selecting a composition and going to Composition, Add to Render Queue, or by pressing Command-Control-M while selecting a composition in the project panel, or by pressing it while being inside a composition timeline. Once we do this, the comp will be added to a new panel called Render Queue. Here we have a few options in blue that we can click on. They will bring up different setting windows. There is also a drop-down menu here where we can select predefined settings. The first one is Render Settings. Let's skip over this for now, as there's not much you'll need to change here when exporting your files. Next, we have Output Module. If I click on it, a window will pop up that will allow us to choose from various formats or codecs. The most popular export setting is H.264, which exports your composition as an MP4 file. You can export your video directly in After Effects or with Adobe Media Encoder, which with the correct settings can sometimes be faster and has more options available to us. In After Effects, there are two more types of files that we commonly use in the native renderer, these being formats for QuickTime and PNG sequences. Both of these file formats allow us to export our animation using an alpha channel. That means that if we have transparency in our objects and backgrounds, it will be preserved when we import it back into our project. The only problem with these file types is that they tend to be extremely heavy, so we recommend using them only when necessary. If you want to export these file formats with transparency, you need to select the correct format from the drop-down menu by clicking on Channels and then selecting Alpha from the list. Another handy option in this window is Resize, which enables you to change the output size when selected. You can also use Crop to trim your exports, like for example when you want to export a square version of your project. You can enable Crop and add values to margins until you have the desired size for your video. Audio options are best left at default settings, so don't mess with these. Once you're done, select OK. Next, we need to choose the output by selecting where the file will be exported to. Finally, you can select the Render button and After Effects will start encoding and exporting your animation. I briefly mentioned Adobe Media Encoder. Let's take a deeper look at it. It has a few extra formats and options that we can choose from. To add comps to Media Encoder, all you have to do is go to Composition and then select Add to Media Encoder. This will automatically open the software, but it might take a few seconds to link your project, but your comp will be added inside the Queue panel. Usually, the default format that Media Encoder will try to use for encoding is H.264, which exports MP4 files. If we click on the drop-down menu, you'll see that we have a few more codecs to choose from, like PNG Sequence and QuickTime, just like in the After Effects native renderer. We also have animated GIFs as an option. Depending on your line of work, you will more than likely never need any of the other formats. Now let's go over some of the encoding options for H.264. Start by selecting the blue name of the format. In this new window, we have a few options we can choose to control the quality and other elements of our video. On the right side, we have a preview of the composition that will be encoded into the MP4 file. On the bottom, we have some controllers that allow us to scroll through the animation and also change the area that will be exported. You can drag and drop these triangles on the bottom to change the start and end points of the animation. On the right, we have our export settings. On this panel, we can change the format from the drop-down menu as well as the name of the file and the output folder by clicking on the output name. The next two check marks let us choose if we want to export the audio and video or both of them. Next, we have the Effects tab. This allows us to add properties to our video as it's being encoded. Here you can also add an overlay image that can act as a watermark on the video. You can also change the position and transparency it will have in the exported file. The next tab on top is for video. In the first group of options, I would only recommend changing the size and frame rate if needed. Otherwise, leave everything as it is with the default values. The Render at Maximum Depth checkbox will only increase the render time and size, and you won't be able to notice any major differences. Rather, leave it unchecked. Next, we have the option to choose if Media Encoder will use our graphic card or use software encoding. I don't recommend software encoding as it will dramatically increase the render time. Make sure you have hardware encoding on. Next, we have the bitrate options. In simple terms, this controls the amount of data that will be encoded in each frame. The higher the bitrate, the better the quality, but the file size will be bigger. The lower the bitrate, the lower the quality, but the file size will be smaller. There are three types of bitrate encoding. Firstly, there is constant bitrate that will force each frame to be encoded using the same bitrate. Then we have variable bitrate with one pass. This works by checking each frame and uses different bit rates depending on the complexity of the frames, but tries to target the defined value. And finally, we have variable bitrate with two passes. This takes longer to export as it creates a first pass and then goes over that first pass and double checks each frame to find the perfect bitrate. Leave the value set to default and lower them if your file size is too big after the first export. Always check the estimated file size at the bottom and see how it changes when you adjust the values. All other tab options and parameters won't be used. Take note that you can connect Media Encoder to Vimeo, YouTube, and many more social media platforms by going into the Publish tab. This enables you to automatically upload exported videos to social media platforms. Once you click OK, you can add other files to the queue or remove them by selecting them and pressing Delete on your keyboard. When all of your files are ready to encode, click on the green arrow on the top right of your queue. Once it's done, you can click on the output file and locate your encoded video. One last thing I'd like to touch on is your After Effects memory cache. A cache stores all information After Effects needs to make your playback run faster and smoother. The stored information takes space on your computer disk drive. You can see how much memory you have allocated to it by going into the After Effects Preferences window and checking under Media, Disk Cache. If you're running low on memory, your cache is probably full, and After Effects might start working slower than usual. To fix this, go Edit, Purge all memory and disk cache. Don't worry, this won't erase anything from your computer, just the preview frames you currently saved. Remember this as it will help you optimize After Effects when it starts running slowly. Conclusion. After Effects has multiple ways of encoding and exporting files, and knowing what options and preferences we have will allow us to get better results in our exports.